My name is Bill Hawthorn, and I love to invest in real estate with no money down. I call myself a creative real estate investor. And in this video, you're going to find one of the most powerful secrets I have in my arsenal. And you might at first think that I do it the way others do it, but I have found, after spending well over $100,000 on my education and having many coaching clients that I have helped buy hundreds of houses with, I've bought hundreds of houses on my own and have lots of experience. I don't say that to brag, but just so you know where I'm coming from. This strategy is the most powerful thing known to real estate. And I'm going to explain that to you in this video, and I'm going to start right now. Its slang name is subject to. Now, that seems to be something that seminar gurus will throw around the room as bait. Chum, as we call it when we go fishing in the ocean. You throw chum overboard. That means you're throwing pieces of fish or things that fish would eat overboard, so they'll swarm around the boat, and then you throw down a hook and you catch them. That's what the gurus do in seminars. They talk about this subject to. But here's the problem with subject to. If you don't do it right, then it could be a disaster. So there are many that will talk about it, especially on Bigger Pockets. We'll talk about how subject to is no good because they did it and they got sued, or there was some problem, or the due on sale clause is the big thing. But I'm getting ahead of myself because I want to back up and explain to you what is subject to. Why is it called that? And how does it work? So basically, here's the gist of it. Subject to is slang because back in the day, you could assume somebody's mortgage, which means you could take over their mortgage payments and the bank would let you do that. So you would take over the mortgage subject to all of the agreements that the seller originally made, like the interest rate or the payment amount or the date of the payment or the defaults and all the rules of the note or the mortgage. And you could take over that mortgage subject to everything that the owner originally agreed to. And the bank used to let you do that. But some years ago, I think it was 1979, I might be wrong on the year, the bank said, you can't do that. You can't assume mortgages anymore. Because, of course, people were abusing it and it got out of control. So nowadays, what we do is we actually still take over mortgages legally. And I'll tell you the reason why. You would not believe this until this happens to you. But some people will actually give the deed to you and keep the mortgage in their name until you can pay it off. Now, this is not some desperate seller. They are motivated, but they're not desperate. This is not somebody like in foreclosure or completely destitute and they'll just throw the keys at you and say, do whatever you want. Although that does happen, it's not normal. What is normal is there are people that need to move out of area because of a job, or they have two houses and don't want to be bothered with this one, and there's they got divorced and they want to get rid of the house, and there's a bunch of reasons why somebody would do this. But I will assure you that subject to is done differently today than ever before. And here's the reason why. Often, for many years, I would do these subject to deals where somebody would put the deed in my name, which, by the way, when they put the deed in my name, the more, it's not like a car loan where the title can't be transferred because of the lien release. In other words, with a title of a car, if there's a lien on the title, motor vehicle will not let you register it until the lien is paid off. This is not like houses. Houses, you can transfer the title and the debt can go with it. So often, many uneducated people out there, and I'm going to say uneducated in this topic, maybe they're smart other places, don't understand that a bank has a due on sale clause. And the reason why a bank puts the due on sale clause on a deed or on a title is if somebody actually changes title from one name to another. In other words, they pass title or pass deed. Deed or title is synonymous. They're the same words. If somebody passes a deed and changes ownership, the bank can call the loan on due if they find out about it. But that's not necessarily true, because what banks want and need is they actually want to keep the collateral in place. So let me explain this. When you first sign up for a mortgage, which a mortgage is a misnomer, let me explain. So what happens is when you go to somebody and borrow money, we'll say the bank, there's this thing called a note. It's a document that explains all the rules of the lending, like where to pay the money, how much to pay, how much interest, if you're late, if it defaults, if the house burns down, who gets the insurance money. Like all the rules of the loan are in the note. Okay, so the note is what is the agreement between the lender and the borrower. Unfortunately, if you don't pay your mortgage or you don't pay the payment, the note is kind of like toilet paper. It's useless. Unless, of course, you have money. The borrower has other money someplace that they can go after and chase. Well, banks are smarter than this. They don't want to do that. They don't want to lend people money that can't pay them back. They want to get their money back, and they know that. So what they do is they take the note and they attach it to the house. And they use the house as collateral, so if the note doesn't get paid, they can go after the house and get the house back. Well, to do that legally, you need a bridge to go between the note and the house, and that is called a mortgage. And the mortgage is the device that connects the note and the house, which is the collateral, together. So if somebody doesn't pay the note holder can go sue the buyer to get the deed back. Because remember, when you do a closing, the deed changes hands. So what happens is the bank gives the money and they get this note with the collateral attached as security. Make sense? It's a little confusing, but this is how it works. So here's what happens. If the note holder, the borrower, doesn't pay, then what happens is the lender can sue the buyer for the deed to get it back in their name. And the reason why they're suing them is because, there's too much skullduggery or dishonesty that can happen if that doesn't happen. Suppose I had a note with you and I was 5 days late on my note, then you can come to me and say, you're 5 days late on the note, I'm taking the house back. And then I'm out of a house because there's no rules. So that's the reason why they use a court, and that procedure of getting the note and the collateral back for non-payment is called foreclosure. And that's a set of standard rules nationwide in most cases of how if someone doesn't pay the note, they can execute the mortgage and get the collateral to come back to them, and then the note goes away and they get the house back and they can sell it. Okay. Why am I explaining this to you today? Because here's the myth of subject 2. What happens is if you break the chain between the note and the house and you break the collateral, which is hard to do, but if you break the collateral chain, in other words, If the bank feels like their note no longer has a collateral connected to it, then they freak out and they call the loan due. But if you do your paperwork right and you do the correct things, then the bank won't mind as long as the collateral is still attached. And as long as they know if the payment doesn't get paid, they can go sue. Matter of fact, in most cases, they can, if they do subject to, they can sue the original borrower, which is our seller, and they can sue us. Now they got two people to sue, and they like that better, believe it or not. I know you don't hear much talk like this about subject to, but this is the way it works. Okay? So here's what happens. If for some reason the collateral is broken and the bank, the lending bank or the lending whoever, it doesn't even have to be a bank, the lending institution or the lender, we'll say it that way, feels that the collateral is broken, they'll trigger the due on sale clause and they'll try to come get their money. If it's not, as long as you keep making payments, they don't care what name is on the check. As long as you keep making payments, then they'll just keep letting you have a loan. This is the magic of subject to. When you find a seller that will allow you to do this, which, by the way, there's a couple ways to do subject to, and I'm not going to get into the details here because it could get a little bit in the weeds, but just to give you a couple hints. What I do, what I've done for dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of subject to, this is my favorite deal strategy. It is by far the most profitable, quickest way to make you a millionaire, make you real estate rich, is with subject to, because you get the deed in your name. The other choices or the other ways that I've taught you how to buy properties, like with our sandwich lease option transfer or just an option or a lease option where you stay in the deal. And by the way, if you're watching this video standalone on YouTube and don't know what I'm talking about, there's a link in the comments to get into my 10-part series. It's an email series where I have these videos all in sequence so you can understand what I'm talking about. So if you're confused about what I'm talking about, just go click on that link and get into the series, and I'll explain all of it in the course of 10 videos. But for right now, I put those houses into a trust. Now see, there's 4 entities that can own a piece of real estate. That's a person's name, your name, my name, your wife's name, your husband's name, whatever it is. You can have an entity like a LLC or an S corporation or C corporation. You can have a partnership, or you can have a trust. So what we do is we take the property out of the person's name and put it into a trust, and then we manage the trust. So I've done that for years because it looks like to the bank that the seller is actually doing estate planning. But lately I've done it even easier than that. There's this thing called a wraparound mortgage. And what it is it's a mortgage. Let's say you have a mortgage of $100,000 here, right? And the seller has a mortgage of $100,000, and then you buy the property for $110,000. You can give the seller a mortgage of $110,000 that loops over the $100,000 mortgage. So in other words, I can give a seller a loan, just like we talked about with the note and the mortgage and the collateral. I can give my seller a loan of $110,000, and the seller can keep their $100,000 mortgage in place and take payments from me. And the legal beagles like that a lot. Closing agents and lawyers like that a lot. It's a lot easier. It's a lot cleaner than doing it the other way. Plus, your seller has recourse if you don't pay. If you do it the other way, there's no recourse if they don't pay. Okay? So that's a little bit technical, but I want you to understand something very important right now. You can and will find sellers that will allow you to take over their payments. And the way I do that is when I'm on the phone with the seller, I ask them, would you be willing to sell the property for what you owe on it? Now, obviously, if they owe $1 and it's worth $200,000, they're going to say no, and you should be careful how you use that question. Quite often, it's like if they owe within, 20% or 30%, $30,000, $20,000 on a $200,000 house, then I would ask that question. The reason why is because if you watch my other videos in the series, you'll learn that the cost to sell a property is between 12 and 15%. So you can go 20 or 30% of the cost or the value of the house, and if they owe less than that, more than that, then ask the question. So if they owe, we'll say $70,000 on a $100,000 house, I would ask the question: Would you sell your house for what you owe on it? Because I know $15,000 of it is going to be for closing costs, so I would negotiate. Okay. So, anyways, I'm getting into the weeds. Here's what I want to do. I did an expensive event once, and I explained the different deal strategies. So I cut a clip out of that event of the math and how this works. And the clip goes through how you can make the offers, how much the maximum allowable offer should be for a subject to, which is 80%. And I'm going to explain how you know that and what to do once you do know that, and then how I sell these properties and how I make a lot of money when I sell them. Because a little hint, I don't sell them for market value. I usually get 5 or 10% more than market value, and it's incredible. So let me show you the math and kind of come out of the lack of not seeing it phase. Let me draw it out for you on a piece of paper in this clip that I'm going to show you from this event. And then when we're done, I'll come back and we'll chat for a little bit more, and then we'll be done with today's video and you can get out of here. Okay? So grab a paper and pencil because you're going to like to write down what I'm about to show you, especially the math, so you can catch it later. You might have to go back and watch this video again a couple times, to totally absorb the math. It's not hard math. It's just you're going to want to get this strategy because when I first started in 18 months, I became a multimillionaire just doing this strategy, nothing else. Okay, so I had I think 1.7 or 1.8 million dollars worth of property in less than a year and a half or so, doing this one single strategy. So you could do the same. Okay, so here we go. Here's the clip. Check it out. I'll be back after the clip is done. Okay, here we go. Getting the deed, or subject to. Worth $100K, right? We've already distinguished that. He owes 80. Because it's 80%, right? So that's 80 grand. Okay? His payments are $900 a month. Let's just change it up a little bit. The way this deal works, the seller gives you the deed. He deeds you the house. This is not a car. Like with a car, you can't do that. The lien holder has to get paid off to clean the title. On a house, you don't need to do that. You can pass the deed from one person to another and not pay off the loan. So if I buy the house from Jessie, she deeds me the house. The mortgage stays in her name. I pay the mortgage. She walks away. I pay the maintenance. I pay the taxes. I pay everything. I own the house because the deed is in my name. Okay. So I got it. About 5 of you just went, why would you do that, Bill? Why would somebody do that, Bill? Who wants to ask the question? Because I'm sure somebody asked it. No? Nobody knew that. Okay. Right. Why would anybody do that? They're motivated. The difference between these deals And the getting the deed deal for me is if I'm going to do renovation money, because what I didn't tell you is these deals are pretty houses. They have to be pretty houses because you do not own these houses. So do not put money in these houses. If they want $5,000 walk-in money or the house needs $10,000 in repairs, whose money is that? Or the private money lenders. So if you're going to put money in the deal, the deed needs to be in your name. You have to be able to control that property, otherwise you lose your money. You have to be able to control the property, otherwise you lose your money. One more time. You have to have the deed in your name, otherwise you lose your money. Does it happen every time? No, it only needs to happen once. Especially if you're borrowing the money. You're not protecting your private money lender. Do not do that. So these houses are pretty. These houses are ugly. This house is in the middle. What I mean by that, this is a house that is functionable, but has a 20-year-old kitchen. Or a sidewalk that's broken, or a roof that needs a repair, or whatever.
Our money lenders will not have a lender if they're not in first position. So if there is a mortgage, they're not going to go into second lien.
I'm sorry to hear you had those lenders. I got lenders that will be in second position. The best place to find one of those lenders is with retirement money. IRAs, self-directed, all that kind of stuff. Okay? It is more difficult. I kind of snapped at you, but it is more difficult to get your money guy to be in second position. Okay? Often, the money is walking money for them. They want $10,000. They want equity. They want their share of their equity. So what I have done 40 plus times is offer them more money and put it in a note and give it to them when I sell. So in that particular case, they go in second position. They're fully protected and secured. Right? Well, no, they know what the house is worth. But yeah, they could if they want. We've already determined it's 80%. Right? So on a $200,000 house, right, you can go down as low as what? 160. No. Yeah, 160. Suppose they owe 130 and they want $10,000 to walk away. Right? So often, if they're asking for money, and here's what I used to do. This is what I did for my first 20 deals. Ready? The house is worth $200,000. They owe 130. They want $20,000 walk-in money. If they wanted $20,000 walk-in money, I would double the $20,000 and subtract it from my offer. Yeah. Well, let's do it with $10,000. It's easier with 20. So suppose they want $10,000 in walk-in money. 130. So they're asking me for 140, right? Tom, I can't pay 140. I can only pay 130. I would double the amount of money and then make that and take it off the price of the house. No, just the walk-in money, the $10,000. So I would double it at $20,000 and then take it off the price that they were asking.
Oh, so that like that. Should drop it.
No, I don't need to do that. That's just a strategy, but you got it. Okay?
In the case of Mark, he's getting the deed because he cannot market it otherwise. Is that a good reason to get this?
No, the only reason you need to get a deed is if you put money in the deal. So you should get the deed. Are you putting money in the deal? Did I say how much? I'm being sarcastic. Did I say how much? No. Money in the deal. If you got money in the deal, you need to protect that $5,000, whether it's yours, his, doesn't matter. You need to protect the $5,000. The only way to do that is to get a deed. That's it. Now, when you sell, you're going to sell on a lease option with a delayed cash out. So 2 different deals, buying and selling. That's why we're only talking about buying tonight. Yeah.
So if you get the deed, the mortgage still exists, you're paying the mortgage. Suppose you stop paying the mortgage, isn't that secured by the property? So what would happen to that?
It's a good question, because for a very long time, for a year or two, when somebody asks me, well, I don't like that because what happens if you don't pay me? And then I had this very unusual thing happen to me. I'm going to make this story short. It's actually a long story. I'm going to make it short. God bless you. You from Wallingford? Okay. North Haven. Do you know where the Ridges are in Wallingford? Okay. It's a community up in Yalesville. I bought a house up there. Okay. I bought it subject to. Went through the whole process. 2 years. Sold the house. Okay. Done. Made my money. 18 grand, something like that, whatever it was. I forgot the number. About 3.5 months later, I come walking into my business, and the sheriff's there. His name is Tim. We know one another well. I'm just teasing. He's been to me a few times. Not just because I've done so much business that just shit happens, right? He serves me with some papers. He's serving me with a foreclosure notice on that piece of property in the Ridges. Look at the paper, and I'm like, I don't own this property anymore. I sold it like 3 months ago. The lawyer did not pay the mortgage off and still had the money. Ding, 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 ding. There's a problem with this lawyer. That's a story within itself. We'll talk about that offline if you want. What it taught me was that on a subject to deal, your name is on the deed. So when they foreclose, the first thing the bank does is a title search. And they incorporate the person on the title and the person on the mortgage as the plaintiff. Is it plaintiff? The person they're suing. I'm the defendant. Good. The point is they were suing me. Now, the person that owned the house, how many houses do you think they owned? How many did I own? More than one. Did I want to be sued? No. So, your question is answered in a long story, but the answer is the deed is in my name. I'm not walking away from your mortgage, because if I don't pay the mortgage, it gets foreclosed on. They do a title search. They're coming after me, and I have more houses than you have. I got deeper pockets than you do, and I'm not even bragging. I'm just saying that's how it is. So I'm going to want to protect all my other assets. And when you explain it that way, it takes away most of the fear of why would I leave the mortgage in your name, in my name. Make sense?
Right now, our interest rates are like an all-time low, and they'll start going into like 6%. You're going to see more subject to, because people want that 3%
That's right.
interest. Mm-hmm. So that's when you're going to see, and that's when you'll see Realtor start doing those, because the interest rate on the mortgage now is equivalent like 3%, 3.25. Or you can assume.
You can't assume them anymore. After 1979, is it? You couldn't assume. The VA, the mortgages are not assumable anymore. You have to be approved, yeah. So, Frank and I had a conversation about this one day, and he was like, a subject to is just what she said. It's an assumable mortgage. But it's done differently than what the banks allow you to do, because the last thing I'm going to say on this, and then I'm going to move on, is the reason why we get away with this is because we put the house in a trust, and a deed of trust, okay? And it looks like we're doing financial planning to the bank, and it doesn't trigger the due on sale clause. I'm telling you right now, this is the second $1 million thing I'm going to tell you, because when I learned that, this is what got me into real estate, because I did nothing else but subject to the first 30 or 40 deals. That's all I sold. Because it was that much of a strategy. Because guess who made the law? Politicians. Because here's the thing, once you put a property in a house, you can't put a lien on it, you can't sue it, you can't anything. A trust is hard to penetrate.
You're saying the subject to is the same as the getting deed.
Getting the deed and subject to is the same thing. Yeah, it's slang is subject to. Getting the deed is its real name. Right, so it's subject to the underlying mortgage. So you're agreeing to pay the underlying mortgage. It's subject to that term. So if the terms are 19% and $80 a month, that's what you pay. It's subject to the terms already there in the mortgage.
And it always stays in the guidelines.
Here's the interesting thing. What happens if it's a 30-year mortgage and there's 27 years left? How much time do you got to pay that mortgage off? 27 years. If you played your cards right and dealt with the seller right. Suppose the seller doesn't want the mortgage to stay in their name for 27 years. Just refinance it later on. But I'm going to tell you right now, before you go down that road, you could probably pay them their equity sooner, agree to pay their equity in 5 years and keep the mortgage in their name, and you'll probably be all right. Because they just want their money, that's all. They're motivated for their money.
Powerful, powerful math. What do you think? That was exciting. Okay, so I'm not going to babble on too long here. I will have to say that if you want to build a retirement account quickly, this is the best thing you can do. You can take deeds in your name or in your company name, pay the mortgages, sell them on a rent-to-own, get 5 or 10% down when you find your buyer, like immediately within 30 days, get money monthly, which is your cash flow, and then have a whole bunch of equity later on because you bought at 20% discount, and you'll sell for 5 or 10% above market value, so you got a 30% margin. It is absolutely the most genius way to build retirement, build wealth, all of the above. I'm not even going to go into the tax benefits where you can get depreciation, you get appreciation. Oh, by the way, here's a little tip. Every single year on my subject to houses, because I'm paying the mortgage, I get it, and I hooked up with the mortgage company and told them to send all the mail to me, and they do that. In February of every year, I get the mortgage statement saying all the interest that I pay. So, like, the one that comes to my mind, I don't even know why, because I just recently talked about this, was $6,600. That interest, because I paid it on the subject to deal, is a tax write-up for me. So right away, I could take $6,600 off of my income and not pay taxes on it. And there's so many different ways that, I mean, there's probably 7 or 8 different tax benefits of the deed being in your name that you'll get. You'll get it. It's yours because you own the house. It's absolutely incredible. You could do refinances. There's so many ways to make money with subject to. It's almost impossible to put in a short video. I hope you enjoyed my video today. I hope I didn't ramble too much because this is my favorite topic. This is my favorite topic, is talking about getting the deed or subject to. Again, if this is your first video with me and you found me on YouTube randomly, please go down to the comment box. There's a link there to get into my email series. If you're in my email series, my free 10-day course on how to do real estate, creative real estate, tomorrow is another great video that I'm going to show you. Tomorrow, We're going to get into some rehab retail stuff, and I think you're going to really, really appreciate some of my formulas. Okay, so again, thank you for sticking with me on my video. Make sure you go back and listen to it again, especially the clip that I gave you with all the math. Take plenty of notes, because this is for real. This is real estate. Okay, over and out. We'll see you in the next video.